Good afternoon and welcome to beautiful Pickett, Wisconsin on this Tuesday, October 14th. It is fall, obviously, rather chilly. Today's weather is about 61 degrees. There's a pretty decent breeze, so it makes it feel like 55. And yes, I do have a jacket on because I'm going to be making some wind chill, I hope. On the table today, I have, for the second time, this Aviastar 46 ABC engine. Now those of you that watched the first break-in runs of this engine will know that it didn't run all that great and I wasn't impressed with the carb. Well, when I took it back to the apartment, took the carb off, discovered that the O-ring sealing here was broken. Didn't think to look at that before I ran it or anything because I was told it was new. So anyway, I put an O-ring on there that I found from my Harbor Freight stuff, and it wasn't the right size. It kind of looked like it might seal. Well, then there was a person that commented on that video saying, hey, I've got a couple of these, the 53 and the 46, and you know, a carb from a Super Tiger 40 engine fits perfectly. And I was like, good, because I just so happen to have one. And the other thing I happen to have, and he's right, this is from a G40 Mark 10 carb. It fits perfectly. And the other thing I had in my parts bin was O-rings for this carb, which obviously fit this carb. So now I've got the proper sized O-ring on here. Should be sealing beautifully. So I thought I brought a smaller prop with me to really wind this thing out, and now when I unload it, I don't find it. But I've got a 10.6 APC 10.6 prop on here. I'm just going to wind this thing out. I can't find. Thought I had a 9.6 in my pack of props, but I don't see it now. So we got an APC 10.6 OS number 8 glow plug, which this engine loved, a new carburetor O-ring, and some 5% nitro fuel plus a different carburetor. So I'm going to run this thing, ring it out, get it tuned up, take some tach readings, shut it down, swap carbs, and we're going to see the difference between running with two different carbs. So this should be fun. So let's just do it. Okay, so let's prime this thing up. Should take a prime pretty good. That should be fine. Let's fire her up, see what she does. Did I close the throttle or the needle valve all the way? I don't think I did. Let's start with closing that up. So let's go. Well, it was open. So let's see where it is. So we're going to go 2.5 turns from open. So should have plenty of fuel in there. Should fire right up. I checked that glow plug before I put it on. What is not tight here? Which side is not tight? See, the thing with this Ron Sexton stand is you start tightening these things down too much and it starts wanting to open up that aluminum channel. Okay, that's better. I like the way it was idling. Let's fire this up again. See, so I don't know that. Okay, so we got a peak of 13,720. I think I've seen enough with that carb, so I'm going to swap carbs real quick and let's retune this thing. Okay, so I've got the Super Tiger Mark 10 carb on here, and I closed the high-speed needle and just opened it to 2 full turns just as a starting point. Same prop, same fuel, same everything else. I'm hoping my tachometer turned off. It hasn't turned off yet. I wanted it to turn off and so I can re-zero it, because I can't re-zero it. So I'm just going to leave it in my pocket, tune it, and then we'll check the RPM here. It'll shut off here in a few seconds, I think. I probably need to get some fuel coming in here again. So this says it's shut off. Okay, it just shut off. I'm not so certain about what that is. I'm gonna richen. Thought I heard one of my cameras beeping. Richen that high-speed needle a little bit. So right now we've got a lower peak with this carb, but I've got this barrel almost completely closed and it was still hovering around 3,500 RPM. I'd like to see a 3,000 RPM idle. Okay, geesh. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, because this has 3 adjustments, low speed, high speed, spray bar, hey there, I am going to loosen this up and I'm going to adjust the spray bar just a hair and rotate it and see if I can get a little bit better transition. I'm rotating this down just a hair because I've seen that these really like to be more pointed towards where the rear lug would be. So I'm going to point it like that and see if that changes the transition, because a lot of times people don't know that these Super Tiger carbs have this adjustment. And you can oftentimes fix a transition issue like that. So now the spray bar is pointed more down towards that rear hole, because I think everything else is pretty good. Let's fire it up here again and see what happens here. Otherwise, I would just say maybe this engine just doesn't like to transition quickly. I think I finally have that so that it's got a decent low speed. So it's not rich because that's not making it better. So it seems like it's lean. Okay, so I don't really know what to say about this engine, this run. I really, in my mind, hey there, I really in my mind had it that putting a Super Tiger carb on here was going to completely transform the engine, and it didn't at all. In fact, I had a lower peak RPM with that carb. In fact, I've got plenty of fuel. I might even go back to the original carb and put it on there again. And I still had the transition issue that the original carb had. Now, it seemed like it would be fine if you just go really moderately fast, not really slamming it like a lot of people like to do, or sometimes I do. It doesn't like that with either carb. So I don't really know what to say. I mean, I think the engine is a decent engine, I guess, but sheesh, even with this better Super Tiger carb, it's really kind of, the transition is just kind of weird. And then the idle was weird with this too, because you'd see the idle RPM would start climbing. And usually when you start to see it climbing, it means it's lean, and then it'll just die. But what was happening here was the idle was starting to creep up, and then it started to come back down. And then it sounded like it was going to die, and I don't know. I don't know what to I don't know what to think. All I know is that's the run for today with 2 different carbs. I might actually throw the other carb on here and put another little segment at the end of this and just try it one more time with the original carb, because I'd rather take this thing off the stand with the original carb on there. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well fire it up again. So let's just do that, but this will be the conclusion of this video. Okay, original carb on here. Last little segment of this. Let's hook up the fuel line, get fuel in here. That's interesting. Doesn't feel like it, looks like it's drawing fuel now. There. Got fuel in there now. The height is perfect. I don't understand why it wouldn't want to draw fuel. Unless I don't have it sealed, but I pushed it down there pretty good. So that leads me to believe it might be just a hair rich. So let's lean this out just a little bit and see if I can at least get a more stable idle. Because the thing, this is running pretty, I mean the top end with this carb is nice. I'm playing with the throttle just to try to find a different lower speed that it'll stay at. Okay, I've had enough of this engine.